to share with us her story, and she graciously agreed to. And so she's here with me today. The format's a little bit different from what we have usually presented in the past, but I'm thinking and hoping and praying that it'll go just fine this morning. So I'm going to interview Cynthia, and she's going to share some things about her own spiritual journey. So with that, good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning. And good morning, everyone.
Could you please tell us something about yourself?
Well, first, I just want to preface, I think I'm going to clear up, okay? Just sending love. And I know they're tears of joy. They're not really tears of sadness. They're really tears of joy. So
Okay.
I didn't expect that. So I'm just kind of excusing myself.
Okay. I didn't realize that I was muted for that introduction. So I was telling you that I've known Cynthia for about 14 years and invited her to share her story with us this morning. And I'm going to interview her. And then she started to tell you something about herself, and I didn't realize that we were muted. So I apologize for that. And I am holding Cynthia here with me in my home, and knowing that we are in a safe space and that we trust our understanding of each other and of God. And we're just going to do the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, Cynthia, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Where do you begin? I'm 74 years young, and you try to think of what would be of value to my sisters in God. And in my bio, I tried to give a brief sketch, and I realized that my story begins with my grandmother. I told you my father and my grandfather are Chinese, and they were immigrants. And my grandmother is as blonde and blue-eyed as you can be. And she is from a very well-known American family. And when she married my grandfather, it was at the turn of the century. And as the story goes, and I can't really tell you what is fact and what is fiction, but I received the story from her youngest sister, the youngest of 13 children. And the story is that my grandmother basically disappeared. She went underground, changed her name, and married a man she had met through the Episcopal Church, teaching them English and helping them. My grandmother was a devout Episcopalian, and my memories of her are reading the Bible on her knees and always talking to me about the most important thing was love. And I was fortunate to get her cross. She was very devoted. But I think when she married a Chinese man at the turn of the century and disappeared from her prominent family, she suffered a lot of things. And it didn't matter to her, because she always told me that love was the most important thing in the world. And I believe that. So her story is my story, because they grew up with a lot of discrimination, a lot of cruelty, and she crossed the boundary when she married. There are many stories, and I won't really tell you about them, because it's ultimately a story of triumph and love. And I grew up on Long Island, although we spent a lot of time in the city, Natalie, and we were half-breeds. And my mother was a half-breed. So life was a challenge. We were not accepted by the pure Chinese, and we were not accepted by the pure whites. When we moved to Long Island, it was really almost a mistake, because the area that we were in was denying purchasing of houses to anyone that was not white. But my mother and my aunt, being half, looked very Caucasian, and so they were sold houses. But my family grew up in a district where there was no diversity. We were the only non-Caucasian people. Many stories there, but the stories really are of triumph. There were trials, there was cruelty, there was injustice, but ultimately there was love, great love. We always loved. My family was wonderful. I was very, very fortunate to have such kind, loving people. My father and my grandfather, of course, were from classical China. The Confucius, the Buddhist, the Taoist thoughts were a part of their lives. And while my father was baptized a Christian in the orphanage, he still retained his Chinese attitudes. So for me, I was brought up very strongly Christian, very devoted, and in every way. But I also had this background of Asia, and I didn't really understand it. It took a while for me to pull that together. And actually, it was a struggle because I was hearing from some of the Christians that all these people who didn't accept Christ were going to be, going to a very bad place. And that was harmful to me as a young person. I tried to pull that together. And my whole life has been trying to bring the different cultures together. So I don't know if that's a good introduction.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Cynthia. I appreciate it. So I wanted to ask you a question about your experience that would, a story from your life that would sum up your understanding of your own spirituality. And I feel like you answered that question by the message from your grandmother was love. Mm-hmm. And so having said that, can you talk to us a little bit about how you discern the presence of God in your own life?
I think the best way to know God is to love many things, to see love everywhere. And whether I like it or not, I kind of always see that spark of the divine in people. My mother would always worry because she'd say, you always see the good in people. And be careful. I did always see the good in people. And to borrow from the Hindus, they say namaste. And to translate that into a Christian phrase, it would be, I honor the Christ within you, your true self. And whether I liked it or not, I always did that. And God protects fools and children, and he protected me because I would see the good in some people that was so small. And the rest of the time, they were not very good, but I was protected. So I guess I sense God in people. I sense it in nature. I sense it in music, but mostly in people and in children. In children, I really sense it.
Thank you, Cynthia. Could you share with us a life-changing experience that strengthened your faith?
Yes. I can. I'll share a small piece of this, and I know time is limited, and that's good. It's taken me a long time to be able to process this, and I'm still doing it. A life-changing event for me was when a child was born to us, and he came with abilities and gifts that I couldn't comprehend. The only way I could understand it was through understanding Jesus. And I spoke to him about that, and I said, I only understand this through my understanding of Jesus. Well, this led me on the pathway to go to all the church leaders, every Christian denomination that was in my neighborhood. I went and I talked to the pastors, and I said, this is what my child is experiencing. This I know is true. I can validate it through science, through medicine, through philosophies. I can validate it. Tell me about it. Help me. I don't know what to do. He's very different. And as you saw, I went to every single church and tried everything. And I got a little bit of the answer from everyone. They were so wonderful. Every denomination I visited was so full of love and respect. but they couldn't answer my questions. So I searched and I searched and I searched. I went to scientists. I went to different indigenous peoples and also the Eastern Tibetan Buddhists. I went there too, and I got bits and pieces of it. And all along, I was prayerful, and I knew that God was leading me. So this child brought to me an opportunity, and a very challenging one, where everything I believed in and trusted dissolved. It couldn't answer my questions. And I was forced out of the comfort of a Christian home, or I was forced out of the comfort of a Christian paradigm. It was expansive. And ultimately, it has expanded my understanding of an infinite God who has many, many names. And I honor all those names, and I honor all those expressions. So I guess it was the child and his messages, I guess. It was very different.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit. Cynthia, can you give us some examples of what you were experiencing with your child?
Yes. He knew things. He saw things. And I had to be sure he wasn't delusional. I had to be sure he didn't have brain tumors. I had to be sure of many, many things that could be acceptable in our Western civilization, in our Western culture. So I explored, and I brought him to, the first one was I brought him to his pediatrician, his doctor, a very kind Catholic man. At that point, our son was able to discern, to see physical and emotional and spiritual pain or imbalance. He would often tell me about his younger sister and tell me why she was crying. And at first I dismissed it, and then I started to pay attention, and I paid attention when there were physical things, and he described them in the language of a child. So I took my daughter to the doctor, and indeed, the doctor said, yes, your diagnosis is correct, or his diagnosis is correct. And the doctor was very kind. He was one of the first people who helped me. He said, I know this is true. He said, God has given him a gift, and he can use it for good. So that's on one level. He could see those things. His pediatrician asked him, actually, when he was quite young, maybe 8 years old, he said, please, would you look at me and tell me what you see? And my son told him what he saw, but only on the physical level. He didn't tell him about his emotional or spiritual imbalances. And the doctor verified it. He knew that this was true. There are many other examples of things that would take a lot of time. But when I was searched, so this is what I would say was the impetus for my search, to understand God, to understand who he is. And only in the understanding of Jesus could I understand my son, what he did, what he saw, and how he acted in life. He was so kind and so loving. It was painful. It was very painful to grow up like that. And it was very painful to be so different, and to be aware of people's emotional and physical pain that I could validate. I was led to spiritual leaders everywhere. I once thought of putting him in a monastery to protect him. I was fortunate enough to have the ability to speak to great scientists and I had access to the man who was the original scientist with savants for the old movie, The Rain Man. And also, I was given the opportunity to talk to a man who was considered the second Einstein, who worked with being people with, let us say, special abilities. And he had been working actually in some secret government projects. So that gave my my left brain, my intellect satisfaction, but it still didn't satisfy my spiritual side. And I know that God has provided that answer, and it's so big and it's so infinite. It's really hard to describe, but I know that helped me understand how infinite God is, and that he has no boundaries, and we don't even know how big he is and how great he is. But I'm learning about it through my child, and I've been fortunate enough to meet many, many children and many people who have these abilities. As Jesus said, these things that I have done, you can do and more if we follow God. And I know that's happening everywhere. And I just want to tell everybody, have great hope, have great strength, because there's so many of these children of God coming to this earth, and they are here to help and guide us. And their greatest lesson is love, and it is kindness, even in the face of the persecution and the hostilities that they face.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for being willing and courageous to share your story with us. I'm just really grateful for that. Can you talk to us a little bit about, let me back that up a little bit. Sometimes we see opportunities as obstacles, and sometimes we see obstacles as opportunities. Can you talk to us about something that may have looked like an obstacle and blocked your own spiritual path, and how it strengthened your faith in God?
Yes, I'm going to limit my story because there's so many layers. Like all of you, we have so many layers and so many tangents to go off on. I think the most important one right now is the story that I'm telling you about these children of God that are coming, these children of God that are here. What a big obstacle for me was fear. A big obstacle was doubt. There was no paradigm that I could go to. It humbled me before God because I trusted absolutely in God. I had to. There was really no one else, although every paradigm gave me a pearl of great price that I strung together and tried to make sense of. And I'm still trying to make sense of it. But fear was instilled in us actually because of the different doctors that I took my son to. They warned us, actually. They told us, don't tell people about this, and especially keep them away from the government and other nefarious groups. So we lived in fear. We actually lived in a lot of fear, and it was an obstacle. But I never lost my faith, because the only way I understood my child was how I understood Christ and how I understood my grandmother. It was just to love, and to use this gift, whatever it is, in love, even in secret. Even when we had to do things in secret, in prayers, we just knew we just had to love. And it was painful at times, but I just want you to know, have hope and strength. And oh my gosh, God is so wonderful, and he's bringing so much joy and courage and love.
Thank you, Cynthia. So
may I interrupt again?
yes.
Is it too early to ask, now that John's an adult? Can you share with us what John does?
Oh, he's a nurse. He's an RN. And I actually had to ask his permission if I could speak, because he doesn't want people to know about this. He wanted to be normal. He wanted to be accepted. He doesn't want people to think, oh, you have this ability. He really would rather people did not know this. And he said, well, but these people don't know me. They're not going to see me all the time, so it's okay. But he said, my story, Mom, is your story. And if it helps, then do it. But he is a nurse, and he's an RN. He also was a therapeutic massage therapist, and he did many, many other things. But I'll have to tell you, sometimes his clients would say, I feel like I've been baptized. And John said to me, he said, well, Mom, I just pray, and then I open up and I let God's energy work through me. And that's how he lives. But he's now he refuses to talk to me about this, by the way. He wants to be normal. He doesn't want the labels. Yes, it's very hard. I can't even imagine. Try to imagine this, like I would imagine that Jesus had to do when you walk someplace and then you know things about people or you see things, and you have to be in this world, but not of this world. I took John to a very famous psychiatrist who worked with international things. And he told me all the time he had spent on the Native American reservations and the things he saw and the things he experienced. And he once told me, he said, you know, trying to live in this world and not of this world can make you insane. It literally can. And very often these children try to quiet these knowings by drugs and alcohol and all kinds of deviant behavior. And he said to my son, do you know I can protect you? I can take this from you. And my son said, no, I can handle this. And I was shocked, you know, I was fearful, but I trusted. And so that's what he does. And he tries to be quiet. So most of his friends don't even know about this. He's just, he's quiet about it. He doesn't talk to me. He doesn't want to talk to me. Although once in a while I'll say, do you remember this? Was this true? And he'll say, yes, that is true. But many of the things he doesn't remember. And he said, perhaps that was God's gift for you, Mom, and not for me. I don't know.
Wow. Cynthia, I want to respect his experience and what you shared with us. And I want to pull back a little bit, if we can, in a broader context. Can you tell us 3 things that you're inspired by the presence of God? Not just on this focus, but on a broader definition, maybe?
I'm inspired by all the great scriptures and all the cultures that I've partaken. They're all the same. They have the same, well, for me, they have the same essence. Their language is different. And I love Terry Wildman's translation of the Christian scripture into the indigenous languages, because that's basically what I feel. I feel like every time I go to a different culture, I'm translating what I understand of Jesus, Yeshua, our oldest brother. I'm translating his meaning into other cultures. I gain strength and inspiration from my prayer, from my meditation, from children, from music, from nature, and from people like you. I love to be with people because I see you. That's the quote from this movie, The Avatar. And I so identified it when they said, I see you. But I do see all of you. I do see you. And I think that that's my inspiration, because I see God in all of you. And I need that. I realize the most wonderful relationships I have are with people who love God. And sometimes they don't even know they love God. But
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Cynthia, I am so unhappy that we had to do an abbreviated version today. I'm going to ask folks that listen today, if you want to email questions, if you want to have more discussion, please let us know how we can handle this. But in respect for Marion Sperling, we're going to go ahead and go to our closing prayer and close early this morning. Thank all 21 of you for coming from all over the world. And Happy New Year. Blessings to all of you. And Kathy Phillips is going to share with us at this time.
Thank
I have a
you.
question. Kathy, where are you? Can I have a question right quick?
Yes, Natalie.
Um, not to put Cynthia on the spot, but I'm wondering if you'll come back and finish what you started at some point. I just think it's somewhat disheartening to have to close at this point because I feel there's so much more. So maybe the last speaker in the year or something. I don't know. Just and I don't know what your schedule is, but we'll be just. I think you got enough left. I think you got enough left to nourish us more. Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. I agree. And so I hope we hear that from everyone else and we'll work that out. Okay, Kathy, take us out, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Cynthia. This is a prayer from St. Clair. We always closed out our sacred ground sessions with this prayer. Go forth in peace, for you have followed the good road. Go forth without fear, for he who created you has made you holy, has always protected you, and loves you like a mother. Blessed be God.
Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen.
Kathy.
Thank
Peace
you.
to all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ladies.
Are you is the group meeting?
I think we're going because we're down to 29 minutes to get to church.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
Don't rush.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Beverly. It's very nice to see you, and we'll see you in February.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, ladies.
So the next. No.
All right. Thanks, Terry. I'm going to sign off.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kathy.